Okay, then let's get started. I want to wish everybody a very warm welcome to the third DIGIREAL MindLabs lunch talk. And of course, I want to express a very warm welcome to Desiderio Cano Porras from Tilburg University. And also, of course, my dear colleague Carlos Santos from Breda University of Applied Sciences to accept our invite to brief us about digital or virtual humans. My name is Igor Meyer, and I am a professor or lector of playful organizations and learning systems in the Academy of AI, Games and Media of Breda University of Applied Sciences, as well as now a colleague of Desiderio, because I'm also an endowed professor of special appointment in the Department of Organization Studies at Tilburg University. And together with Nick van Apeldoorn, who is the program leader of DIGIREAL, I will moderate this session. And I will be very brief because the idea is, of course, that Desiderio and Carlos will take the floor to express their views on digital humans. But of course, this lunch meeting is also organized as part of the DIGIREAL program, so I can't avoid a little bit of explanation and advertising also on why we are here. So the DIGIREAL program, for those who do not know, is a 2 times 4 years Sprong program, so an NWO SIA funded program. And SIA is a special branch of NWO to promote the professionalization of research at universities of applied sciences. And we were lucky to be granted now a considerable funding and support to develop a research and development center in the area of digital reality. So that is everything that has to do with a combination of AI, data, and immersive content, game technology. So for the next couple of years in a pretty wide ecosystem and working together with MindLabs and many other organizations in the private and public sector, we will establish this center. Working together with another University of Applied Sciences, which is Fontys. And I can't see on the participant list if Mark is here, but he is also the program leader of that program on the Fontys side. But the topic of today is virtual humans. This is the third lecture or the third lunch seminar after the first one, which was about the metaverse, and the second one about digital twins. We have today invited 2 excellent speakers who will take us into the research and their opinions also on virtual humans. The first speaker today is Desiderio Cano Porras, a postdoc in the Tilburg School of Humanities and Digital Sciences, the Department of Cognition Sciences and Artificial Intelligence at Tilburg University. The second speaker today is my colleague Carlos Santos, who is a technical director of our Cradle Lab in the Academy for AI, Games and Media, and also the technical lead, one of the driving persons behind the VIBE project on virtual humans, which is just now wrapping up. And I'm sure that Carlos will explain also what the VIBE project is and what it has delivered. The time schedule is as follows. Desiderio will start with a 20 minutes talk, then immediately followed by Carlos. And then if all goes well, we have another 20 minutes, maybe a little bit less, for a shared session on question and answering. And the idea is then that we really challenge each other and also the speakers a little bit with interesting and critical questions on this topic. I think this is more than enough. Desiderio, I would just like to invite you to take the floor and take us away on this topic.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you. Very nice to be here with all of you. I want to thank Igor and also Nick for the kind invitation. This is a fascinating topic, so I love talking about this. Also, I think the discussions about virtual humans are very timely and very relevant, especially because virtual humans make part of one of the most emerging technologies nowadays. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And this is check. And I should do this, and it should be okay now. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, good. So let us talk a little bit about the dynamics of perception and action in extended realities when we talk about virtual humans. But before that, we are going to speak about regular humans, about us. So we are very, we can be very simple, but at the same time, we are complex beings, especially in terms of communication. So when we communicate with each other, when we talk to each other, there are several ways in which we do that. Sometimes we are more conscious and aware, sometimes less. For instance, the most regular type of communication is perhaps verbal communications, in which we use specific languages, right? And we use words. And then based on words, we create sentences, and the sentences have meaning, and we understand each other. But there is also paraverbal communication. For instance, it's not only what you say, but also how you say it, the intonation, the accent, the emphasis in the words, in the letters, in the syllables, etc. But perhaps more interestingly is the non-verbal communication. We all the time are communicating with people based on our facial expressions or our body gestures, our mannerisms, the posture of our body, etc. Even when we talk through Zoom, the communication creates new kind of language. For instance, do I put the microphone on or off? Do I put my camera on or off? And all of these have intrinsic kind of hidden or underground messages that we are communicating to each other. So this is for you to understand how complex is human communication. Good. But now let us talk about virtual humans. So now that we know how complex is human communication, you just can imagine how difficult is going to be simulating human communication through virtual humans. Virtual humans make part of a branch of extended realities that deal with the three-dimensional creation, not necessarily three-dimensional, but with the creation of characters or avatars that look like human. It can be based on an existing person, or it can be based on a non-existing person. And still, if it is based on an existing person, it can be a transformation, a modified figure of the virtual human. This is Suzanne, what we see here. Suzanne is a virtual human created as part of one of the projects I am involved with right now. And to arrive to this point, there is a lot of work, really. There is a lot of computer science, there is a lot of 3D design, artistic design, programming development, etc. But even if it is very difficult to get here, this is just the beginning. Because what is the usability of a virtual human like this? We need to put this under context. What to do with the virtual human? What is it for? Right? So let us speak very quickly about the considerations. What is important to take into account? I will let me try to check here if I can get the laser pointer. Okay. So can you see the pointer?
We can.
Yes. Okay. So let us talk about this. So I say, what is the application paradigm? What is the usability that we are going to do for the virtual human? What is the appearance in terms of age, gender, skin color, body size, walking pattern? What is the medium of interaction? Are we using computer screens, phone screens, virtual reality headsets? What is the level of the perspective of interaction? Are we talking to a virtual human in a second person perspective? Are we observing a virtual human from a third person perspective? Or are we embodying the virtual human in a first person perspective? Also, in terms of movement, you can just see a face, a picture of the virtual human. That would be static, but the virtual human can be dynamic as well. It can be moving, it can be talking to you, but not reacting. If the virtual human reacts to you, we speak about interaction. And interaction has several types of. For instance, the interaction can be a conversation, a virtual human that is able to understand and process audio messages from you. But the possibilities are more than that. For instance, a virtual human can be interactive because can recognize your emotions based on your face or your eyes and then react according to that. If we are speaking about a virtual human in a virtual reality environment, and in that environment there is a simulated desert, so the virtual human can start sweating, why not, right? And also sometimes we speak about virtual parts of human, because to develop the face of a virtual human is something, but to develop the rest of the body is another work, it's another process. It takes other kind of programming, other kind of computer skills, etc. And we can still speak about the physiological virtual human that is related to the digital twin paradigm, right? A virtual human that is able to simulate our breathing, our heart rate, etc. Good. Why is this important to discuss this concept? Because some decades or centuries ago, reality was very clear. There was reality and the rest was belief, religion, faith, call it as you want. But today, in a digital world, in a digital society, there are many realities. So for instance, we speak here about augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, or extended reality, and other realities, right? Think, for instance, about fake news or that we ask ourselves, is this real or no? What is reality, right? And in that sense, with the evolution of realities or the transformation of reality, we are having also, in terms of virtual humans, something that is changing. 50 years ago, when we wanted to simulate virtual human behavior, we were using cartoonish or cartoon-like characters. But today, with the technology available, we are able to develop very hyper-realistic human beings. Good. But to believe that a non-human being is a human being is not easy. And sometimes that's what we want when we develop a virtual human. As I said in the beginning, communication is complex. It's an intrinsic, it's an intricate organization of processes. There is cognition in it, there is perception on it. Of course, this is the product of human evolution and a lot of social engagement. We pass from nomadic to sedentary behavior, and that comes with many consequences. But then when we speak about a virtual human, we need to think about the illusion, how to maintain the illusion for us to believe that we are talking with a human when it is not a human. So realism is a contingent of illusion. You may remember the Turing test. In 1950, Alan Turing designed the Turing test, also called the imitation game. Basically, with the emergence of machines in the last century, Turing was asking, it was kind of a challenge to society. Are we able to distinguish the intelligence behavior of a machine to that of a human? Or can be the intelligence of a machine in a specific context equivalent to that of a human? This is a very fascinating question. So here we have Miley Cyrus. Probably most of you know it. I don't know if I am pronouncing it well, her name. But the question is, do you recognize which picture here is the real Miley Cyrus? Good. Let's see this, for instance. And I will need, because this is, I will need to stop my video and then share again. So end slideshow. Yes. Oh my God, what I did. And then what are you seeing right now?
We see your presentation.
You are still seeing the
Presenter mode, but to see the PowerPoint.
yes. So stop share, and then I will do this. I will do this. Okay. So here you have Miley Cyrus again, and
it's like a little doll. It's like a broken doll, like a baby doll.
Thank you.
Yeah,
a broken doll.
Yeah.
so
The best way.
she is able to do something that is very weird, right? This is really weird. I cannot do that. She can close one eye, keeping the other open. And this is not a skill that all of us have. And then I will start sharing again my presentation. Okay. Good. And then here. Sorry for that. So basically what I want to, the point here is to see that when we see something that is quite not there yet, something that is human, but it doesn't look well, is strange, we speak about breaking the illusion, right? And this is very, very important when we are trying to understand how we can perceive virtual humans. Good. Let's go to the other one. So speaking about illusion and reality, as I say, we are changing. Today, our human condition is constantly being tested in internet. There are underworking algorithms all the time trying to identify if you are a real person. And we get these messages all the time. Are you a real person? Click here. Are you a robot? Click here. To verify, see if these are traffic lights. To verify, see in which pictures are bridges or whatever. So, but we also need to decide, because it is not unidirectional. It is not the technology towards us. Now we start asking, how is our relation toward the technology? And there are things appearing that we need to tell whether it is real or not. This is critical for, in philosophical terms, and for the transformation of society. So here I want to introduce you with the concept of the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is a scientific hypothesis proposed by Mori. Mori is a Japanese researcher and technological entrepreneur that in the 70s he proposed this hypothesis. So basically, I want you to think about robots, because the first context was about robots, but also virtual humans. When you find a robot in the television, in the movies, or in real life, what you expect is that the more human-like, and this is the horizontal line, the more human-like the robot, your relation, your affinity towards that robot or towards that virtual human will increase. This is what is expected. This is assumed, of course. We know humans. So if the robot behave like human, I know how to deal with it. I can predict, I can anticipate the behavior. So it's a positive emotion, a positive reaction. So this line appears to be true until a certain point in which the robot or the avatar or the entity looks too much human. And we say too much human, but not quite there yet. And this creates a gap. And this gap, we say uncanny valley. This is what we call it. Perhaps if I show you this picture, you can rely better on what is the uncanny valley. In the movies, it's very common. So when we create cartoons, the cartoons are cute, are nice, are funny. But then when we start to increase the realism and the human-looking appearance of the character, there is a point in which that illusion is broken. For instance, if you saw the Polar Express or Tintin or Tantan, I don't know how you call it, also the famous Belgian comics, when they make the movie, it was very weird. So we start to think, what is happening here? And of course, the final the final ultimate person in this graph is going to be a healthy real person. In this case, we have Mori here, the proponent of the hypothesis. Good. But the illusion is very easy to be broken. When we see the lip synchronization, is the voice of that virtual human or character being matching the facial expressions? What about the eyes? Is this virtual human able to simulate eye contact? Look at the teeth. It's very weird. It's very easy to break the illusion. Well, now I want you to think about virtual humans as a template. Virtual humans as a plastic to mold. Virtual humans, for instance, they don't think about a basic body. It doesn't need to be gender-based. It can be no-binary, or it can be even androgynous, partly male, partly female. You can change the color of the skin. You can change the gender. You can change the body size, the nails, so many things, the hair. You can change it. It's a template. It's a plastic to be molded. Here, in one project that was supported by the European Union and I was involved with, you can see an original pic of myself. Based on that original pic, you can create a self-avatar. But also using artificial intelligence algorithms, you can produce older selves, and you can produce selves with larger bodies. And based on those productions, you can create also avatars of virtual humans of that, right? Can we think about the consequences of this, about the application? Of course, the technology is always there. The technology influenced everything, but determines nothing. What is determined is according to the use we give it. And that's why virtual humans has so many applications in societal life, in multi-sectorial. I am not speaking only about science or about movies. So we can speak about industry. How to use virtual humans as influencers in social media or a digital representative of your company. In education, what about the introduction of virtual humans in serious games, or like a virtual tutor for you learning a new language? What about business? For instance, we create an older self and we invite the person to think about investment and retirement planning, because it is difficult to imagine ourselves being 70 years old. But when you have a virtual human that gives you the illusion that this is going to be you when you are 70 or 80 or 90, perhaps our behavior can change more easily. Also in research, today, 3D production and 3D character generation is being used, for instance, to generate virtual humans of mummies from the old Egypt, more than 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And we can see how these cadavers look like in that time. Also in clinical and health applications, I have many. My own background is in clinical applications. I worked more than 7 years in hospital with patients. And the projections of virtual humans is many in clinical aspects, for instance, in telemedicine, in digital twins, etc. In the culture, perhaps it's the more mainstream. We see it in movies and video games, but also new books are speaking about virtual humans. And also in art, but for instance, exploration of alternated selves and our relation to extended realities, and perhaps more intriguingly in philosophy, because we start asking again our question with another level of contextualization. What does it mean to be self? What does it mean to be other? Good. Now this is Vicky. Vicky is a production of Carlos. Carlos Santos, the next speaker, he's going to talk better about this. But we are using Vicky in an eye tracking research study in which we see how people scan a virtual human. And here I will let Vicky to speak herself. If she do it. Yeah.
Hi there. My name is Vicky. I am a virtual human. This project aims to integrate novel technologies into daily life tasks, such as when we look for directions and navigation routes to travel from place to place.
Yeah, so this introduction Vicky gave this introduction to 80 participants that participated in one research project that we recently finished, actually last week, and we are going to start analyzing what happened in that interaction with Vicky. Vicky makes part of the VIBE project, and Carlos Santos is going to talk about this. And this is Professor Max Lowers. Probably most of you know it. He is my scientific advisor in Tilburg University. And this production also makes part of a new project we are working on, in which we ask ourselves how to bridge the uncanny valley. What is needed to get to the other side and to preserve the illusion, right? Or what are the most vulnerable aspects of a virtual human to break the illusion? And all this, I am almost finishing now. All this, of course, is very important. This is primordial. Has a lot of ethical and legal implications. I will mention just very few. We are speaking today about avatar rights. Of course, the avatar, perhaps you say, but it's an avatar, or how it can have rights. But when we speak about virtual humans, especially those based on existing persons, is very delicate because we are speaking about the image of an existing person. So what is the legislation about that? Of course, there is a lot of things to do, and policymakers have some things to be busy with. Also, image property and legal protection. We need to avoid that third parties profit without proper agreements. There is a lot of personal data generated when we interact with virtual humans, depending with which other technologies are used. For instance, we can have data about your gaze, eye gaze, about your voice profile, about facial expressions, body movements, walking patterns. All of this information can be linked to a real person, and this is sensible. And also,
Desiderio,
yes.
Desiderio, I want to ask you to wrap up now, and also to give enough time also for Carlos, and that we also have time for questions and things we can explore further.
Yeah,
is that okay?
Yes, sorry. I get very engaged when I talk about these topics, but this is my last slide. So this is a very quick acknowledge. I mentioned some projects, is VIBE, Eureka, also the Socrates projects. And I also want to put here some credit for the next museum, because I went to an exhibition last week. They have a very good exhibition, and some of the quotes I use in this presentation were taken from them. So that's why I put it here. But thank you again, and feel free to contact me. It was lovely talking to you. I will be here for the discussion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Desiderio. Carlos, can you take the floor, please?
Can you hear me? And can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Double check. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for give me the opportunity to talk about one of the topics that I'm really passionate about, which is virtual humans. I can speak a bit about who I am, basically, and I think I'm going to skip this a bit, but basically I'm already working for Bread University of Applied Sciences for 10 years, and I worked in multiple research projects and related to artificial intelligence, but also games, augmented reality user experience. And lately I've been working a lot in digital humans and 3D hyper reality. But today I'm here to talk about, not me, but virtual humans and what they are. And actually we can think about, and I think Desiderio did a really good introduction about it, but we can think about the big mess, which is virtual humans, as very simple 3 steps. First is there is this character, this digital human that needs to understand us. The second is to have to manage some kind of dialogue and to be able to formulate an answer, and then finally embody that response. And those are the 3 main steps, and I think Desiderio did a really good job explaining all the variants that there are, but it can sum up all those 3 different things. Understanding people is actually quite hard. The sense is that speaking is the most natural way of communicating, but it's not only one. There's a lot of nonverbal communication, speech. There is the text. There is multiple ways to communicate. but communicating is basically just a structure way, structure system to provide to people to interact and to be able to communicate. And language is the main one. But my language is multimodal. Like you have different ways to pass information. You can have sign language. You have sound. We have different ways to consider things. But also you have to consider things like the culture. We have to think about what is the community involved. If you can speak the same language, you're not going to be speaking with your kids the same way you're going to speak with a colleague, which has a much more depth information about the same topic. Or you're not going to be talking about some specific topics with some people that you don't know very well because you don't know their background. So you're very much into the cultural setting and the setting that they are there. It's very very fixed on the culture you linked it. And even across time, the topics that we talk about nowadays, they are very sensitive 100 years ago and 200 years ago. So the time is also very important factor of that. And they have a very wide range of expression. So communicating and the first step of understanding people, it's quite deep in terms of what is communication and how you can receive and interpret that and be able to transform that into a computer language that the computer can understand and be able to digest into a way that the computer can formulate an answer. And that is the second step, is managing dialogue. And there are actually different types of managing the dialogue and approaches to this. It's been a quite long process for AI and artificial intelligence to understand humans and generate a proper answer. And there's multiple ways to do it. There is the grounding in terms of just providing information about, oh, interesting, and nodding and providing a bit more, like, let me know more. There's the inform, did you know that, and you provide some answer to specific information. There is the normal answer or request for more information on things like, oh, I don't understand this, or I don't want to know more, or do you know about this? And you ask questions for the other person for you to create your own context so we can provide a proper answer to things. And there is the proper answer about, this is the answer do you have for your question. So there's actually these different types of phrase generations that you have to consider in terms of digital humans for that. And you have other cues. You have things like, and then there talk a bit about that, about utterances, nonverbal cues. You have intonations, like inflection on sentences, long pauses, and that actually creates all of the setting for actually managing the proper answer or a dialogue or be able to communicate with others. And there's actually very different types of AI systems being done, and they are developing quite deeply this knowledge. The oldest ones are Cleverbot, that they actually do a reasonable ability to actually pass the Turing test. But nowadays, GPT-3 and Lambda are the big ones that people are now talking about. And these are just basically the first two steps, and the final step is embodiment. And we discussed, and Desiderio did quite a good job explaining there's different levels, different ways of covering what the human is, and there is this tendency of getting closer to the realistic human. And I'm not going to talk about the Uncanny Valley because I know that they're already covered, but there is already now tools that you can just go out there and create your digital human or meta-human, and it's quite realistic. And there is the possibility of you trying to mimic yourself in a digital and virtual environment. What we feel is that this lacks a lot of empathic cues in terms of be able to express, to create the ability to create different expressions, intonations, and that is one of the reasons why we are developing our research site on Vibe. So I'm going to explain a bit more what Vibe is. Vibe is a research project that we're doing in collaboration with Tilburg University and a lot of other partners and basically it's looking into digital humans for medical applications, and there's and I'm going to talk one of them specifically. But we basically are developing on we are responsible for the creation of the embodiment of a virtual human, and we decided to actually use real humans for a specific reason. It was mainly for making as much believable as you can, since this is for medical applications, and the medics need to figure out specific type of emotions and skin differences, so they can actually do diagnosis. So I'm going to actually talk about how we create this and what is the steps for doing that. So to create realistic humans, we actually use a 7-step approach, and I'm going to go over a bit more on each one. We actually develop a photo scanning studio that actually does photogrammetry. So we take a person. This is Vicky. So Desiderio showed a bit Vicky and how he shows at the final product, but I'm going to explain a bit more what all the steps that we took for actually getting to this stage. So Vicky was brought into our photogrammetry studio, which we scanned them. We took the 360 pictures of her and multiple poses. We scanned more than 60 different poses that put her in doing different types of different expressions with the face, smiling, being angry, screaming, closing the eyes, squinting, all of those things. We scan her and we take 3D pictures of it. And from those pictures, we create 3D models like you would see here. The 3D models are then created using a photogrammetry-based software, and what it gives us is a spatial point cloud, literally points on the face. They're afterwards creating triangles, and it's basically very rough information, as you can see in there. And then we go through a process of cleaning up to make sure that this is properly cleaned up, and we have to create holes, literally, on the eyes and the mouth, to actually create them as empty sockets so we can fill them in afterwards. The hair is another thing that we also take out, is as much as we can the hair, because that is done afterwards. After this is done, we work a lot in the textures. Literally, this is an unwrap of a human face. It's what we take, and like the world is a sphere, right? But when we see a 2D map, it's not a sphere anymore. So we have to unwrap it and make it a 2D. And this is a similar process that we take. We just take an unwrap and create a texture of the face of a person, and to be able to place it on top afterwards. We work a lot on the 3D, so we scan 60 different poses of persons, and we create 3D models of each and every one of them, and from that we actually blend them into a single side, which you make them animate. We can then make them smile, rotate the head, rotate the eyes, and make them fully animated. Obviously, this has no detail assets, and that's what we do afterwards. And we create an inner mouth, we create eyes, we create the hair, and we finally got a 3D model. See if I can make it play. So Vicky is a 3D model that we have from a real person, and we generate it with different expressions and different ability to work and to be able to simulate different symptoms. For that reason, we actually create, for example, different types of skin controls to allow technical and medical instructors to provide different types of skin control in terms of if it becomes more pale or more blush or more sweatness, and to allow the medical instructors to actually create realistic settings for it. We use this for medical training, like I explained, specifically for pregnancy. So they have this mannequin they use for training doctors how to do delivery of babies, and the liver of babies have this mannequin that has already quite extensive capabilities of simulating different types of pathologies or problems, but they don't have a face. And the fact is that the doctors in training or they actually have to talk with this patient patient, and there is a very similar with the Wizard of Oz system that the doctors that are training, the trainers, they actually simulated, they role played the aspect of the doctor, but they have to literally voice out, oh, she's now becoming a bit pale, and actually breaks up a lot of the illusion. And one of the things we are doing is actually using all the processes that created about making her look more like panic and respond and create a full illusion of a doctor using motion capture in real time and doing all of the things that you showed on scene control, voicing what you want to say, to actually replace that and actually use this for medical training. So this is actually a test that is currently in setup in MMC, Maximum Medical Center in Eindhoven, and this is exactly what they're using for. They're going to be trying out using Vicky as virtual patients to be enhancing what they already have for the medical physiognomy for the mannequin they have. But there's other applications, and what we developed is quite broad in the sense of what can be used for. And this is me talking
Hi, my name is Sherry.
to Sherry.
I am a digital assistant developed by Breda University of Applied Sciences. How can I help you?
Hi, Sherry. Can you cancel my 2 o'clock, please?
Sure. I canceled it.
So this is a very simple example of me looking into and talking with the virtual assistant, and it's a much more natural process that we can do, and it's just an example of what can be done. And at the moment, virtual assistants can extend a lot of the work that can be looked at, and it can be a support helpful. So this is one of the research that we're currently looking at it as well. So I think Desiderio also talked a bit about the next steps and where we're going, and I think he's quite right when you talk about all the different aspects to make this a more believable digital human. But there's big steps ahead in terms of AI singularity and digital humans as individual in terms of sentience and consciousness and sentient and self-aware. So sentient is actually something that we know that they are already. They can have a quite strong database that inform us, for example, but are they self-aware? Are they conscious? Those are the big different elements in terms of what there is. And there's a very big discussion that happened about 6 months ago, and when one of the researchers in Google, Blake Des Moines, came out and announced that they had Lambda being sentient and be self-aware, and it's still unclear, but what does actually that means in terms of individuality for digital humans? Would they have their own profile and psychology profile? They have their own personality traits, and what about ownership? What about the digital rights and what are the impacts? What are the social laws that we have to consider for this? And there's a lot of things to be discussing for the future. Basically, I don't have an answer yet. This is clearly something that we all are looking into, but there's clearly some social and cultural impacts ahead. So in short, I think this is a very long human ambition. We've been seeing scientific movies since the 1920s when we see robots and interacting with the humans. And I went a bit down on the rabbit hole and explaining how those are created at the moment, but there are still a lot of gaps in there I didn't touch. But there is still a long way to go in terms of individual singularity and moral and ethical implications. But I would like to open the floor to questions, and then we can have a more open discussion about it.
Thank you very much, both of you, Desiderio and Carlos, for covering this very rich and complicated topic in 2 times 20 minutes. It's amazing. I think you set the stage and the scene, and I would like to open the floor for questions. For those of you who have attended previous meetings, what I very much like, and I guess maybe everybody, is short questions, short pitchy questions and short answers. And just take the floor. You can raise your hand and then we will assign or give you the floor. But also don't mind if there is a little bit of silence to just take it and ask questions. Who has a first question? Yet. Ah, yeah.
No,
Okay, fire ahead, Nick.
What you currently see in social media is that some people really like perfect human beings. They follow them and other people think they're super scary. I'm quite interested how this works with virtual humans. Do we like very pretty people, or do we like people where they have a little mole somewhere, or that are just not that pretty because it makes them actually more realistic?
I can take that. I can tell you that for a very long time, in terms of research, we prefer to have imperfect humans. It makes it more believable, more realistic, more hard. The skin not being perfect is harder to do. Having small defects, you have to make sure that those become believable than have like a perfect smooth skin. And to be fair, if when I go about and talk with my research teams, like, okay, what's the next meta-human that you want to bring or digital human you want to develop? They definitely don't want the pretty pictures. They want the old, crackly human beings that have a lot of wrinkles, because one is a big of a challenge. Also becomes much more realistic. You get that detail out there, which is not normally present on normal on more humans, let's put it this way. So they prefer clearly more unnatural, or a more not unnatural is not the right word, more clean humans.
Desiderio, what's your take on this? On aesthetics or
Yeah.
beautification of your thing? Because also if you have to sell it, right? The things and the demos that we show, we'd like them to be as pretty as possible. And they can be of a certain age or whatever. But still, then if you look at the typical meta-humans that you produce in Epic Things, they all look pretty handsome, right?
Yeah. I think it depends also on the context and what is the kind of implementation you want to take with your virtual human. There is research on it. Nick, if you are very interested in it, I can give you a couple of articles that speak about this, in which they combine aspects of virtual humans, attractive, not attractive, cool, and they put it clothes like to look cooler, and the others are less cool. So I think that in my personal take is that we should avoid to maintain and increase this vision of the perfect body, the perfect face. I think we should go far from that. We are simulating virtual human behavior. We don't want to create and to continue this stigmatization. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, for Vibe project, for example, we created different kind of persons with different body types, with different genres, different races as well, to make sure that we have a quite diverse set of representation in our set and in our portfolio of digital humans.
Yeah.
Okay. I see another hand. Nicole, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Very interesting, both presentations. I have a question. The last slide of the presentation Santos gave, it was triggering me because it was about moral and ethics, and you said there's a long way to go. But I was curious, who decides about those things?
I can bring the slide back if you prefer, if you like. Yes, clearly there is some good good discussions to be discussed there, or to be reviewed there. I don't know. I think all of us will decide. It's about, culture is not defined by one person. It's not defined by a single individual or politic state. It's a state of group thinking. I think, and then based on the culture, the societal implications and laws we'll have to confirm, and we see that changes over time as well. So I don't know what will be the starting point. There is clearly the privacy is dictating a lot at the moment. The privacy of the individual in terms of image rights, who is responsible, who owns it, is quite a clear discussion at the moment. And for example, the discussion I mentioned about Lambda, it becomes a question also who's owning that AI. Is Google proper property? Is if we can get a sentient AI, would be considered slavery? Is we going to go back to discussion about slavery? It's a very interesting topic in terms of cultural setup, and not only that, about what about death? When we shut down a computer, is that becomes dying, killing a person or an
Carlos,
AI?
I am going to stop you for a moment because I think we have more questions. Nicole, does that roughly answer your question, or?
Yeah, it does. It's just it's difficult. It's a difficult topic, and I'm just, if you see what happens now with the internet, then laws are being made after it has been launched and after it has been. So how can we prevent that? So how do we?
This is a very interesting question. I think the question underneath is, can you leave it to market forces and the thing, considering the rapid innovations and the big money and investments that is coming from big tech, or do more social organizations, research organizations, public institute also have a role here? And how do we keep up with these innovations? And how do we institutionalize the discussion about it, the regulations about it, the mechanisms to control it? So this I think is a very important topic for further research. I see a hand also by Olaf. Olaf, just go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, do you expect that there's a difference in the demand on the fidelity of virtual humans depending on the power relationship between you and the human? So in the example of talking to a personal assistant, where you're more maybe likely to talk down, like schedule this, do this, compared to like a tutor who has to tell me something, or a therapist that needs to help me. How do you see that in terms of the requirements or the demands on the fidelity of the virtual human?
Okay, Desiderio, do you want to take up this question? Is the question clear?
Yeah, I think it was okay. I can answer this. For instance, you can have an idea like there are studies that show that when you interact with the virtual human of Einstein, somehow in a specific cognitive task, the person perform better. So you can ask ourselves, is our behavior depending on the appearance and the fidelity of the virtual human? So I think that yes, it's important. Imagine a father that gives a virtual tutor for a child, and the virtual tutor cannot be just any virtual body. Probably the parents will want to have control on who is this appearance that is teaching their son. So I think, yes, there is an influence, and it's important to keep in track fidelity and appearance.
Okay.
Half, any follow-up questions on this, or wait for further discussion? No? Okay, and Nicole, you still have your hand raised. Is that still raised, or do you have another follow-up question?
No, sorry, it's I'll put it down.
Doesn't matter. Okay, still we have 5 minutes more time for discussion. Anybody else? Gigi?
Yeah, if there's time still left, I would like to also ask a quite difficult question. Actually, I'm curious, because if you see how the technology of virtual humans and artificial intelligence, you will see that one day it will really have a very human-like, almost you cannot see any difference, virtual humans. So what do you think? Is there in the future, will there still be clear boundary between virtual human and real human, or that boundary can be really blurred due to all the technology we take into account, artificial intelligence, and how you can make the appearance really like superhuman. Yeah. Now, to bring a little bit background, I'm reading a book, the Reality Plus, by this virtual reality philosophers that Nick recommended to me, David Tarmans. And actually, he also brought this topic into very, very deep philosophical topics. And he used the Star Trek film as one of example to say, okay, one day if the artificial intelligence is really become so intelligent, is related to the sapient question, and then so intelligent that it can really do a lot of things of human and also look almost like human. So how do you still separate what is real human and virtual human? I don't know whether this question just to Carlos or
okay, Gigi, I think the question is clear.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's a very deep question. Okay,
Yeah,
Desiderio seems something for you maybe, or yeah, Carlos also okay, but good luck with answering.
Yeah, I can give a quick one, but yeah, these are the questions we are asking ourselves. But the point is that we created like the tendency is there, established. Now we are working on hyperrealism. Now many people will keep working on this, and we can only expect to improve in the quality, in the technical details of the realism of the virtual humans. So I think this will keep increasing. It's like a kind of destiny manifest that we just improve. And also the realities are merging. As I say, we are creating alternative realities, but always it's difficult. It gets increasingly difficult to tell which is real life and which is an alternative reality. I want to give one suggestion to finalize my answer. Jaron Lanier, the coiner of virtual reality, in his book, Dawn of the New Everything, he speaks like that. Virtual reality is always something that follows behind and tries to catch reality, always trying to simulate reality. But real life itself is always changing. So it's like the never-ending following up. It will be always something that will try to catch there, but because this is changing, we will not get there yet. So hopefully never we will be in that situation, but this is philosophical.
It's a very philosophical, and I'm going to invite Carlos also to reflect on it. But the question is also a little bit on this, what Yuval Harari calls like a cyborg science, right? We're also at the same time as we're creating virtual humans, we're also merging ourselves with all kinds of digital technology. Maybe that's in a less advanced stage. But we do the same with nature. Huh? So some of you know that we're working on, for instance, digitalization the ocean or creating digital twins of the ocean. While we are doing that as a virtual copy of the ocean, at the same time, we're implanting all kinds of digital observational techniques into nature itself. So, and then if these two streams becoming merged, yeah, you get a totally different ballgame. Okay, but maybe Carlos also has a perspective on this.
Thank you, and thank you, Gigi, for the question. Yeah, it's clearly something that to take in consideration for the future. And when I say the social and ethical implications of this and cultural implications also reflects this. And I'm not sure if I agree with Desiderio that the virtual reality will always going to be catching up with reality. I imagine that they will become their own in space, their own. We see that with the metaverse and with other systems that we start creating alternative realities for, and so I imagine that that's going to be a space that entities like digital humans will coexist and live in the full sense of AI systems. And I think we are moving a bit away from what is digital human, and maybe we should talk about digital entities now, not about humans itself. We are talking about replication of what the humans are. We are talking more about these entities being their own system, their own, and they're becoming their own self-aware entity, and becomes a bit more difficult to say. And maybe that's our legacy as humans, to travel, because they don't have limitations of timelines, and they can live forever. They can travel the universe maybe for that, and that becomes a much bigger question to answer. Who are these entities? But yeah, that I envision things slightly different. I think Desiderio, I think they will surpass reality and create their own. That's
Okay.
what I imagine.
Okay, looking at the time, I'm super excited by the presentations and also the discussion. I believe it's also a little bit of science fiction becoming real. It triggers all kinds of philosophical futuring and looking into the future on where this will bring us. But at the same time, it's already happening. And a lot of it is also innovation, technological development, which we are part of. I think we have to close the discussion for now, but I sincerely hope that with all the plans that we have, Petra, in the Brabant region, but also beyond, we can really build a structure to continue this line of research, both on the technological side, but certainly also on the political, societal, and philosophical sides of it. And now I hope that somewhere in 23, we can organize another seminar, hopefully socially, where we can pick up all of these topics. Thank you very much for now. I hope you enjoyed. I already put in the chat if you have any suggestions because we're now planning the next series of DIGIREAL briefings or lunch talks for 23. Come up with your suggestions or contact MindLabs or Nick. And we will certainly take it into very careful consideration, and hopefully we will see you back at one of the other meetings. Have a good day. Bye-bye.